It's 5:30, we call. 5:30, we call the meeting to order. Any agenda adjustments?
None for us.
Any public comment? Okay, the next item is the annual meeting prep. Sarah?
That's it.
How are you?
Good.
Do you want to start with the budget or do you want to start? with
Why
the
don't we
warning?
start with the budget, because people love budgets.
Exactly. So there's a proposed, budget, I believe in your packet. Most of the items, I'm proposing would stay the same as 2024. A slight increase in, advertising, as advertising has, gone up drastically, and statutorily, we have to post the warnings in the paper and the availability of the reports. There's a proposed 4% increase in salaries. And I think everything else stays the same except for, the audit expense, which is, 5%, I believe.
And 5% of the total that we pay, the Morrisville Water and Light pays.
And this is, proposing continuing to have a separate article for, the village special project funds, $500. Any questions?
So it's 14,000 and change raised through taxes.
So I have a motion to approve the budget. Any discussion?
I'll second.
I got
Sarah?
one.
I was just gonna say, I know you don't have an exact, but what is the ballpark tax rate with this budget, do you know?
I didn't
Yeah, okay,
calculate
that's
that.
fine. It's usually like 0.0.
Um,
0.01, it's like a penny or less.
It's less than a penny.
Okay, yeah.
I think it's 0.0048.
Something, yeah, okay.
And to clarify the motion, the maker and seconder are intending to approve to put it on the warrant for the annual meeting, correct? Not really approving the budget.
Right.
Just want to be clear what you meant.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll change the motion to
It's good. We
approve
got
the
it.
warning
Yeah.
for the budget. I got a question. The money that's coming from the Copley cell phone tower,
Mhm.
it's, should be a lump sum.
Mhm.
That-
Well, it's been
It
a lump
hasn't
sum.
closed. Well, go ahead.
Oh, are you talking about the 2,400 a year?
No, 20, that was last year. I'm talking this year.
Oh, I don't know anything about money
So-
for that.
So I thought about changing that, Bob, but we don't really have clarity that we're gonna get that this year or when it's gonna happen, so. I thought the safest thing to do in the budget was to leave it as it's been historically. We may go way
Okay.
over in terms of the
All right.
receipt this year, and then next year we'll have to explain that, you know, there's a one-time payment and we're done with it.
Okay,
Because I've got no confirmation that it's closed and we're getting a check on a certain date,
okay.
And we
so.
have been putting the 2,400 that we get every year in the reserve fund,
Mhm.
not in the.
Right.
We've been putting it in the special project fund,
Yeah.
not in the general government.
Mhm. Okay, anybody else?
Can you lower the what you have up on the screen?
Oh, sorry,
all I can really see is the general, the bottom part. I can't see the top part.
that's
Yeah.
the top.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
thank you.
Yep, sorry, and any of you online, you know, tell me what you need and I'm happy to scroll for you. I have that capability, I don't have many, but I got that one.
There being no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the warrant for the budget?
Yeah, it's fine.
Aye.
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 Perfect. Who want to do next?
Warning? Or do you have any other documents that you wanted to go?
Before we do the warning, let's talk about Amy Wade to see if we're gonna
Okay.
add an article for that, if that's
Okay.
okay with you?
Yeah,
So, the Amy Wade Fund. You all know what that is, and, first, let me stop sharing this. And, the question last year you all had was whether or not you wanted to put some of that money to work in the community.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, let me just share this so people online can see it. Hang on.
But I think, we decided that we can do it. We don't need a vote at the town meeting.
Well, yeah, we
Village
do.
meeting.
Yeah, we do, if you want to spend more of it.
We want to spend more, we're not gonna spend any of the principal, we're just gonna spend,
But what you said
So
last
page
year. is-
9 of 47, if you look at page 9 of 47, that is the Amy
Have
Wade
it up.
schedule.
And what you said last year is you wanted to take some of the money in the
in
unreserved
the unreserved, right?
fund balances, not the principal from the original
We can't touch
donation.
the principal.
Well, you can if you go to probate court, right?
Yeah.
That you want to have a warrant article to take some of that money out of that bucket and move it over into. Is it this appropriated budget?
Correct, yes, the
This
appropriated column.
appropriated category, and it doesn't matter whether you spend it in 1 year or 5 at that point, because then you can decide how to
Well,
spend it.
does that have to be on the warrant too?
Only how much of this 129,000 you wanna have available to put to work, and there've been some ideas about updating the holiday decor on the streets and the flags and, Sarah had an idea of, putting some Morrisville signs around town, and we've talked about some welcome to the village stuff, and of course we'd go out and get ideas from all over the community. But really, this money started out with the original 20,000, and
Yeah,
it just keeps building to be more money.
Right.
And it's there to beautify and make this a better.
and I don't
place.
think that the intent of the money was to sit there and
I don't either, so,
not spend it.
but it's up to you, I mean, with the type of things I just said, you could easily get to the 50,000 range, maybe you wanna do 30,000 the first time.
Why don't we do 25
I don't know what you wanna do, but we just, and I don't need you to vote, I just need you to tell us what, it's gonna be a warrant article, so. We'll put the number into the warrant when we get to that, and you can vote then. We just wanted to get a sense from you of how much money would you like to give the community the opportunity to make available.
Can I get a motion to move $25,000 from the unreserved balance to the appropriation balance?
But again, this is to be put on the warning, so the village voters will then,
Yeah, okay,
so,
Yeah,
so add that to the warrant.
Second.
All those in favor?
so it would move from the Amy Wade
So
to
it
the
moved,
village special project?
no, it moved from the Amy Wade unreserved to the Amy Wade appropriated,
Okay,
because that makes it available through the normal process we do.
which was.
that's gonna be a warning article, Sarah.
Which would.
That I understood.
So then it would be 25,000 and 9,000.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so you'd have like 34 grand-ish, available when you put out your solicitation and usually end of April.
And what we do decide to spend on the project, we don't either.
No, you all decide
That's
that.
that, yeah, I just wanna make.
So, and it doesn't mean you have to spend it all this year. If you don't get good enough ideas, it just stays in that appropriated column until it's used, so.
So, while we're on this schedule though, historically, whatever we've earned from the interest on that, we have moved to the reserved.
So that 8,000,
So the
79.
7975, so just to be clear, the way I created the schedule this year, I left it in the appropriated column.
Mhm.
I don't know if they need to vote on that since historically,
Never have. They didn't last year, we kept it in the appropriated. But I think that's fine, I think you can do that. It, as I understand it, the village has to vote only if the money has been moved to the unreserved. To give the trustees the authority to use it, basically take it out. That's my understanding. I'm not aware. Good, all right,
Okay, so moving on,
you wanna talk about the warrant then?
Yeah, unless there's other articles you have about county, village.
Well, we do have one other thing, but we can talk about it at the warrant. We gotta come up and see if there's any,
Non-binding.
But yeah,
any non-binding topics we want to talk about.
so there's a copy of the draft warning, the first part, the Australian ballot voting was all written by the attorney, I just copied and pasted that in. And then the second part, the traditional town meeting, it'll be at the VFW. And there's really nothing new that I'm proposing, the only change in Articles 2 through 8 are, Article 5, the amount of the budget, which changes every year, and then Article 7, the changing it to 2025 for the tax year. And then my biggest question is Article 8, is there any discussion of any non-binding business you would like on the warning?
That's where you made recommendations about just information type.
Yeah, I've been
Sounds
through
good
all
to
like,
me, yeah.
with all the flood stuff we've had down at the water wells, that having people start to get a sense of what's coming at us the next couple of years, because there'll certainly be village votes to deal with the resilience of that. I remember holistically, people always want to hear about Green River. They said, I think in the note I sent, I gave you a list, if I can pull it up. Yeah. Let me pull it up quickly. Yeah, so. The water supply I mentioned, I've had calls about what happens if Canada puts tariffs on electricity. So people might want to hear about that. We're doing a lot with the Morrisville and Cages dams, Green River Dam, so those could all be items to talk about there.
Especially what we're trying to do with, stop flooding around, City Bridge, we're gonna reinforce that, we put in to get grants to reinforce that bank.
Correct.
And things that we're trying to do.
Yeah.
To mitigate any kind of, stop with flooding
Good.
over and over again.
So if those topical items, I mean, I can get those topical items to Sarah and but if those are okay with you, we can add those as discussion items. And we'll make really clear in the run of show with our moderator this year that once we have this discussion, we will pause and we'll make sure that we ask those in attendance if there are any other items they want to talk about. We missed that last year, screwed that up. And some people were unhappy that they didn't get a chance to ask, and that was entirely my fault. I didn't look at the run of show carefully enough, and Jack just kind of kept going, and then all of a sudden the meeting was over and it was too late, so I want to make sure we don't make that mistake again, so. Good, all right, we go back to the warning. Is there anything else, Sarah, you wanted to bring up there?
I don't think so. So,
So what we might do, what I might suggest is so we can get this right, 'cause is this actually the right, you said you need to change. I guess you did that one. Is this the, is that the right number? And is that the right, are 5 and 6 the right numbers?
6 is the right number.
Is that,
5.
is that
It was
the right?
ready as well, yes.
Okay.
Yep, 5, yep.
So maybe what we'll do is,
Well,
we'll-
I don't know, the one I'm looking at is, I don't know the one you're.
I don't know if I have the.
Yes, that's right as well, it's the
So
same.
why don't we do this? Why don't I work with Sarah to get the right discussion items here? And then you can approve this on the 5th. You'll see it's dated on the 5th, so I don't really.
Yeah, I
need
don't
to
want you
take
to-
this action.
It's just,
Let's get it, because then you
Conversation.
sign it, and I don't want you to sign something that I'm then gonna amend,
Okay,
right? That's being
Yeah.
not proper, I think Sarah will say I'm not allowed to do that.
I don't think you can sign it yet anyways. I like to bring it to you.
Yeah.
A meeting ahead of time to discuss in case there's anything you wanna add or remove.
Yeah.
Logistically, how it will work, the Australian ballot will be at the town office from 8 to 7. And then, the floor portion, the traditional, will be at 6:30 at the VFW.
And it is, we haven't had a bond issue vote since I think 2008, so people are, we're gonna have to work to get the word out about this, and we have to work doubly hard to make sure people know that this bond issue won't impact their wastewater rates at all. As you know, half of this is gonna get paid for with grants, the other half is gonna get paid for by the sewer allocation fees we collect from developers. But we're required to take a bond issue in order to get the grant. So we'll just pay the annual payments to the bond issue with sewer allocation fees. That's a whole lot to explain to a public that's then gonna go in, and we don't get to explain it to them that day at annual meeting, because they start voting in the morning. So we'll have an informational meeting on April 2nd, right before your regular meeting. But I've already gotten on the select board's agenda, because more people go to select board meetings in here to talk to the select board about it, so the whole world can hear about it, because everyone loves to come to your meetings. And we'll see what else we can do, but we gotta figure out how to get the word out, because this really will not cost ratepayers anything. But when you get into ballot booth, if you don't have information, you go, a bond issue? I don't think I'm in favor of that, if you don't have the information, right? You're not allowed, all that stuff I just explained, she's not allowed to put that in the article, right? That gets, basically our attorney had to write that to make sure it says the right thing statutorily, so.
And again, if you're chatting with folks at all, this is a village vote, so
Yeah.
even though we have some town sewer customers, they can't vote on it either, it's just.
So is the town gonna be voting on anything at the town hall on that day, just the village?
No, just
Just the
no,
village.
so,
And, Mitzi, my assistant will run the end of the Australian ballot. Well, I will go to the village floor meeting, because they will be.
There's no way people can vote at the VFW if they come to our meeting without, thinking they can do both there. Well,
yeah,
there's no way to do that.
fortunately, we're right across the street, so if they haven't gone
Yeah,
and done their Australian ballot, they can walk back across the street and do it and come back,
yeah,
so.
that's true.
The only thing I did wanna make sure you knew, and if it's a problem, you could always re-vote on the budget, but we talked, Sarah and I talked about in Penny. About, it costs, I forget altogether, $700 or $800 to have this election. Paper ballot
Oh,
election,
yeah,
maybe even
the
1,000,
bulk of the,
so we originally put it in. In the village budget that you just looked at, but since this is a wastewater issue. We decided that the sewer department should actually pay those costs, not the taxpayers. And so we moved that expense to the sewer department and not onto the budget, because it made a 1 year big increase in how much we're raising for taxes, and it didn't seem right. It's a utility issue, so it seemed like the utility should pay, so we all got comfortable with that, but I wanted to make sure you knew that we'd done that. So. Yeah. What else?
I'm good, as long as, I don't really have clear on the discussion items, but I think you
I
do.
can get that for you, now that they said they liked what I wrote to them.
Okay.
And then, next meeting on the 5th, you'll also have the annual meet, the village report, draft from our report, you and I. And then you'll also have the draft dedication to review and approve. And that will give us basically everything we need to put the annual report together. And Sarah really will need us to vote on those that night, because within another, I don't know, 7 or 10 days after that, that thing either gets to the printer or it's not ready in time. So we won't, we can't wait till the 19th, which is your next regular meeting of March, so. We'll have to bring them in and spend whatever time it takes, right? So just so you know, most everything is well underway. Kevin and everyone's been collecting the pictures we always like to put in, got a bunch of that. Drafts are basically ready, just didn't have them for tonight, so. I think we're in pretty good shape. You good?
Okay.
Perfect.
Anybody else? Good. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
Okay.
Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor? Aye. Yeah, ayes have it. Okay, a motion to approve the check registers.
Make a motion to approve the check register.
All right, any discussion?
I had a question, I'm just trying to get there. See if I can remember what it was. Oh, that is aqua aerobic systems.
I just made note of that.
Oh,
I think you got 4,200 was for a new mixer motor.
for like our chemical addition,
No, the both SBRs have 2 mixers on them to stir the stuff up. One of the motors we thought was bad, but it was a chafed cord and we didn't have a spare if it was the motor, so we got a spare. And while we were working on it, we noticed that it was kind of listing in the stew that it sits in, and there was a crack in the fiberglass, so it was slowly filling with stuff, so. Having it sit offset like that, got the bearings to go in, so. People want.
all right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, all right,
All right, nobody else? All those in favor of approving the check register?
Aye.
All right,
Brad's not on, I think he's on mute.
Yeah, Brad's here.
I know, I think he's on mute.
You've been on mute, Brad, but I've had you listed as yes for everything so far. You're still on mute.
Thumbs up.
You're still. Can't hear you, Brad. Yeah, let me see if I can do anything
On the
about it.
dots above, can we keep them on?
Oh, maybe.
How's that?
There you go.
Perfect.
Sorry, guys.
Got you now.
Well, I got a new computer and I'm trying to figure out how to run this thing.
All right, perfect. Have you been okay with all the motions so far?
I have indeed. I've said yes to everyone. I didn't know you couldn't hear me.
lips move, but we can't hear.
Perfect, thank you.
My neighbors approve also.
Perfect. You get your neighbors, we're in good shape.
okay, the next item is the planning council. Commission.
We've got Brent with us and Chris, I think, with the select board. And so I think the idea tonight is to have you, this question's coming, I sent all the materials that we gotten from the town, and then today I sent you the presentation that I think David White is making at the special meeting tomorrow. About the difference between the planning council and the planning commission. At some point, this would come here for a decision. I don't, since that meeting is tomorrow night where people are still contemplating, I'm not sure you'll be ready for the question tonight, but it's a chance for you all to ask any questions. I don't know, Brent, if you want to say anything in advance, but get any clarity on anything you have questions about that choice that you and the select board are gonna need to make, coming up here. Anything you'd like to say, Brent?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Back in 2013, specifically November 13th of 2013, the select board switched the planning commission to a planning council and appointed Todd Thomas as a planning director under Vermont statute. Subsequently, on December 3rd of 2013, Morrisville Water and Light trustees did the same. So we've all been operating under a planning council under 24 VSA 4321B specifically. And the planning council is very much different than a planning commission. Planning council has no authority. They're an advisory board to the planning director, who under Vermont state statutes assumes all of the duties of a planning commission. So with the resignation, the planning council, we've had discussions about how we want to move forward, and we want that to be a process where the village trustees weigh in, the currently planning council weighs in, DRB, and most importantly, community members of Morristown. In the meantime, because the planning council is only advisory, they can't do anything under state statute. They have no authority. So last week there was a planning council meeting. And they requested that both the select board and the village trustees consider making them, at least in the interim, a planning commission. So, while this process is going on, I'd like this process to be quick, but it is important to receive feedback from all the boards, committees, et cetera, trustees, as well as a community, because this is a very important, zoning administration and planning are incredibly important. But in the meantime, they want to do some work, because they have concerns about S100 and some potential loopholes in our 2023 zoning bylaws. So they've been doing work, and there is a red line. But they want to do further work, so they've requested that both the select board and the trustees, at least in the interim, move them back to a commission. So last night, the select board had a motion to do that. I forwarded language that legal counsel provided to us for the select board, and it's a relatively simple change for the trustees. But that's why I'm here tonight for this portion of your agenda, and if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them.
The planning commission would answer to, it's, I think in the document that I read, said to the governing board. Is that the trustees and the select board together? Is that what they're referring to there, or did I?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. And this is you're looking to do a temporary, an interim until we go further or analyze it further, or what's the?
It was recommended that there not be interim language in it. So it could be permanent if the community and everybody involved wants that. But, the governing boards, trustees and the select board can give and they can take. So the planning council requested that it at least be interim so they can continue to do their work.
And what keeps them from doing their work now, not having a director role there?
Yeah, as a planning council under the statute,
Yeah.
they have no authority whatsoever. They're an advisory body to a planning director. Without a planning director, legal counsel recommended that they don't even take testimony on potential matters. So they're sort of in they exist, but they have no authority whatsoever.
Okay.
Under statute.
So you started the search for a new planning director?
We have not. So tomorrow there will be David White will be coming. And I think Scott has invited at least two of you to attend.
I know the chair's coming.
Okay.
I'm gonna be there.
Okay, so that'll be the first opportunity for the community to, even members of the planning council publicly have stated they didn't know under statute their limitations, so this is an opportunity with David White for him to educate about the differences between a planning commission or a planning council with a planning director, and then to also, I think he's going to go over what he sees in Vermont. And then possibly make, share best practices. He might also cover a community of our size with our growth, what he might recommend for our community. So from there, my team is standing by to wait until I get clear direction from everybody. And then we're ready to post, whether it be one individual as planning director under statute and zoning administrator, or if it's separate, if that planning director has the same authority under statute, or if it's just planning director, in title only. So until we have that feedback and direction, we're not going to move forward with posting any job positions.
Anybody else have any questions?
I mean, it's more like waiting, yeah, until tomorrow night.
I'd like
Get a
to,
better
I'd like a
understanding.
motion to table this until we have more information about what's going on.
Yeah, so moved.
Like,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion is tabled.
Which one of you seconded it? Just didn't catch it. Carly? All right, thank you.
Is anyone else planning to attend tomorrow?
I'm good.
If you want, I just don't wanna have three,
Right.
we didn't have time.
I know, I know.
So long as there's two, so.
You know, as long as we're not meeting as a group,
Yeah.
I know you can, it gets murky, you're absolutely right, you all can be in a room together.
So if I see him at Hanford, I have to go do that, but
If you wanna use those.
If those two are
excuse,
talking, yeah.
Yeah. But you know, you just always wanna be careful, it's a
Sure.
government meeting. And though technically you all could show up and not talk to each other and it probably is copacetic. You know, in my mind, caution is the better path then, and not have anybody in the public then feel like something nefarious must be going on because three of you were in a room at a government meeting together, and I just don't think it's worth it. To offer that opportunity. Personally, but you do you.
Is that gonna be zoomed?
It is, and just to back up what Scott said, a couple weeks ago, I was on a Vermont League of Cities and Towns, training. And one of the VLCT representatives said, you know, even having a quorum in a room, in separate areas of the room, if they're nodding their head at a presentation, that could be interpreted.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
Scott is right to recommend caution amongst.
All right. Want to talk about downtown designation? Ready to move to that one?
the designated downtowns now. Yeah.
Okay, and I don't know, you all probably, at least in our current capacity, haven't met yet, so you wanna say hello? And what you're doing these days?
Yeah, I know some of you are, but, yes, my name is Bill Beck, I'm the, Economic and Community Development Director for the town of Morristown, and I think Brent, you wanted to start off.
And just,
Okay.
so I'm gonna be really brief, and then I'll let Gail delve into this, and just wanna publicly thank Gail again, because she's project managing this. And it's quite an application to get through in the time frame that we have, and that time frame is April 2nd or 4th. I'll let Gail get into that. But I just wanna go over quickly why the select board has indicated that they're interested in this, and why I personally believe that this is to all of our benefit, and the residents, the business owners that will be in the downtown designated area, as well as Morrisville Water and Light. And one, tax credits for businesses. And Gail will get into some examples of tax credits that were previously obtained by businesses in Morristown. And she'll get into some specifics about tax credits that are available if we get this designation again. State and federal funding to municipalities, including Morrisville Water and Light. I understand that you will be seeking a CDBG disaster relief funding. Is that something that you're looking at doing?
We didn't know about a CDBG one, I heard, LCPC told me about that today, but we've been after the state mitigation fund. What we've been chasing, and the Northern Borders Commission. The two we've been chasing, but I heard about CDBG today from LCPC, and I'm gonna look into it for sure, so we may be going after that, but today was the first I'd heard of that.
Okay, so the CDBG disaster relief fund, it's going to be very competitive with Montpelier and Barry. Montpelier and Barry both have downtown designation already, and with that downtown designation, they have priority status. So if that is something that you're pursuing, that's just one example of how that can be a benefit to Morrisville Water and Light. Downtown designation is just simply a tool. And I worked at Agency of Commerce and didn't work directly with downtown designation, but knew that, you know, communities would try to get that designation if they could. So, would provide us with prioritization and multiple grants and funding, both at the state and federal level. And, you know, I don't like to put bets in the future, but it looks like resources and funding are going to be more and more competitive, most likely in Vermont especially, over the next few years. So any tool that we can have in our toolbox, I think, would be a benefit. So with that, I understand that there might be some questions about, you know, zoning matters. I'm happy to answer those after, but if we could, I'd like Gail to get into some more details for you.
And just so you know, behind your head, I put the proposed map up.
Thank you.
And I have one, and
I just wanted you to be aware that everyone's been staring at the map.
this is the application, I made one copy for you all, and then I prepared a informational packet. I'm not sure that I have enough for everyone. We may have to share. Okay. I think I do. Let's see what happens. Got 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Do you want one?
I'm good, thank you.
Well, thank you for having me here tonight to share a little bit about downtown designation. Now that we have a regionally approved town plan, we're eligible to apply for downtown designation. And the program focuses on smart growth, keeping our downtown vibrant, our community accessible, preserving landscape of Vermont, and encourages smart growth within our center. So currently the first page outlines that there are 24 designated downtowns in Vermont, with Hardwick joining most recently a couple of years ago, and Stowe around 7 years ago. And the process begins by establishing a boundary around the historic environment anchored by civic and public buildings. And we're working with LCPC to finalize our downtown district map, which you have here and is included in your packet. And essentially, we will be using the same map that we had originally when we were downtown. And the reason that is that we will be submitting our application under a framework that's going to be changing next year. And so with that, maps will be changing. So it was recommended that we keep our map the way it is, and then next year look into making those appropriate changes. The next page outlines, and this is included in the application that I made for you, all of the benefits that are included. And as you can see, there are many, many benefits. And then I want to just highlight a few of the really important ones. So the next page, downtown designation benefits. You'll see that there's a line for the page. If you flip to the next page, Rusty. The benefits of the village are located below the line, and the entire page includes the benefits for downtown. And as you can see, there's many benefits. Eligibility to downtown transportation fund, Act 250 relief, downtown vibrancy funds, technical assistance, downtown and village center tax credits, and state priority for grants. So there's many, many benefits to the downtown designation program. And if you switch to the, turn to the next page, this highlights some of the state grant priorities that we have, that are available. So again, if you get priority, you're downtown designated. Looking to the next page, I want to highlight the Act 250 relief and housing incentives. Currently, there are interim Act 250 exemptions through January 1st of 2027 for downtown designations. So we can take advantage of those benefits within this program as well.
There is some nervousness about that, just so you know, at least.
Okay, and I think, Brent, you're gonna be speaking on that a little bit.
I'll speak whenever you want about what.
I just want you know, there's some concern that,
Sure.
you know, that without Act 250 review, that if we may just become a village of really tall buildings that comes and then they said we, can't support.
You want me to speak to that right now, or?
Is that helpful to you guys?
Sure.
I presume I'm not the only one that started that concern. No.
So downtown designation has nothing to do with vertical height of buildings or affordable housing. There are a couple of acts that are out there that, regardless of downtown designation, that should be of concern to municipalities. And that is Act 181. And Act 181 has different tiers, and it won't really, there's different phases. But I think December 2026 is when they're predicting that, they'll be in a final phase. And then there's these tiers help you to have exemptions to Act 250. But as I understand it, and this is still being interpreted, Vermont League of Cities and Towns this past fall, they had a presentation on it. And I reviewed that presentation. I've also spoken with LCPC and briefly with our consultant that we're using for zoning right now. And downtown designation, according to all these people, has nothing to do with vertical height requirements or affordable housing. With this Act 181, if we were to apply, we being this community, Morrisville Water and Light trustees and the select board, were to move forward and apply for tier 1A, there are some concerns about loopholes for vertical height. I'm being told by LCPC that there's no community in Lamoille County that will be able to or is eligible for tier 1A. I'm being told it's for cities. We being Morristown and Stowe would possibly be eligible for tier 1B. Tier 1B has no if you get tier 1B, it has no vertical height requirements. And we would only move forward with tier 1B if the trustees and the select board decided they want to. And again, this is totally separate from downtown designation.
Let's get back to the affordable housing issue. I remember when this subject came up, probably about 5 years ago. They were still in the planning stages for this place on Hutchins Street. And there was a lot of whining about was a Lamoille Housing Partnership didn't get the points they needed to get a grant because we didn't have the downtown designation. So it was all about affordable housing then. And that's what started this thing when the town went back into LCPC, was to try to get grants for affordable housing. Now you're telling me it's got nothing to do with it?
What I'm saying is that there's benefits, these tax credits for businesses. There's gonna be benefits and most likely prioritization for affordable housing too. But there's no mandates under downtown designation for us to be mandated to put in a certain percentage or to be mandated in whatsoever. There might be a point structure, there might be a prioritization.
Well, yeah, there was like 7 or 8 towns or villages that put in for this pot of money. And everybody had so many points. And it was whether you had water for sewer, you had this or that. And whether you had a downtown designation. And they were whining because they missed it by, I think they missed it by 7 points. But they only would have got 3 if we had a downtown designation. So this whole brouhaha was about nothing.
So I remind you all, I think it was 13 months ago, we had Gary Holloway here from the state. He's the downtown designation program director of the state. And the question you just asked, Bob, what he said when you talked to him about it, which he's affirmed to me again this morning, is that sure, there's all kinds of goodies we can apply for and get priority for, including affordable housing. But none of it's mandated, so if as a community, we decide to go after additional money for affordable housing, we'll get priority and have a better chance to get some goodies, if you will.
When you say we, who do you mean by we?
Well, presumably to do that, since it's a joint designated downtown, the select board and the village trustees would have to agree, I'm assuming, I don't know.
Well, there was nothing like that the last time they did it.
We have to, we should get more clarity on all that, but.
Because
just as he said-
Morrisville Housing Partnership did it.
So there's no, so we should make sure there's clarity about who gets to go after what, and I don't know if you guys know the answer to that. But I just wanted to make sure it's clear that there isn't a mandate that we have to do housing. But whether it's transportation or housing or business development or whatever it is, you basically get priority. You always get priority points, if you're designated, and you have access to some funding that maybe others don't have access to. And you may say there's more than that, I'm trying to summarize.
I mean, I just have a question, you say there's no height, or there's a height restriction, but there, with S100, there is no height limitation anymore, you can go as high as you want, you can't, before you can only be. Your engine ladders couldn't have to reach it, and then they couldn't, and you couldn't build it, now it's unlimited, is that correct?
I don't know about unlimited, what I
But
understand.
there's no, right now, there's no limit, there's no maximum height you can go right now, with the S100s.
So
But that's when,
I asked Gary Holloway that as well this morning, and he said, one that, who you just heard from him about, there's nothing in downtown designation about it, so it is what it is today. But he believed that your local zoning would control it.
Well, if I
we
remember.
get one more floor for affordable housing. So with S100, what I'm understand is that there's affordable housing would have an additional floor that they'd be eligible for.
Above the town limit.
Correct, under S100.
Right.
We all have to comply with
Nothing to
S100.
do with downtown.
Whether we have
Yeah,
downtown.
Right, but now because we have unlimited, if we bypass Act 250, we have unlimited. Units that we can put in, so that means we can have a big growth of apartments.
But our zoning bylaws take precedent. So let's say we went forward with tier 1B, and I checked with a couple people to make sure that I'm interpreting this correctly. If we were to move forward, let's say, in a couple of years of tier 1B, we would have, we would be exempt from some Act 250, but our local zoning bylaws would not be subordinated by that exemption. With tier 1A, there is concern that as written, that with tier 1A, that there could be something that is subordinates to zoning bylaws.
Well, right now, we don't know what the zoning bylaw is gonna be, whether we're gonna have this planning council, a planning commission, we're gonna have one zoning administrator and another planning administrator, we don't know any of that. So we don't know what the zoning laws are gonna be,
That's true, and
okay? So you're trying to make us get a decision on this, saying you're gonna have control over the zoning, but we don't know what the zoning's gonna be.
Well, you'll be voting for it.
Not, some of these proposals I'm saying, maybe we won't be voting on.
Well, I think if I may, I think that, with S100 and Josh can confirm this, that's
Easy, I just walked in.
yeah. I tried to put you on the spot, perfect timing, but S100.
Oh, the town will be voting on it, I'm talking about the trustees voting on it.
So with S100, that becomes the law, whether your zoning bylaws comply with S100 or not, that's the rule of law moving forward. I think that, the intention, and I don't want to speak for the entire board, we've had this conversation in the past, with joint meetings. The intent is that it's not the trustees and it's not the select board, at least in my mind. We live in the same community, we serve the same community, and it's important that there's a partnership here moving forward. And
Well, one of these packets I got, sounded like there was a proposal to take the trustees completely out of the zoning issue.
I have not seen that,
Okay,
haven't seen that, and I think that. Because we're, both boards and the community are affected by this. The purpose for us to be here tonight to begin this conversation, the purpose to have David White come and explain to both boards what our options are. Think that, you know, the status quo at this point is that it's a joint venture. And whether statutorily, the trustees need to be involved in it, I have to feel, and again, I'm not speaking for the entire board, but it needs to be a partnership in my mind. And you know, this downtown designation offers this community many benefits. We get to choose what those benefits are if we choose to walk down this path. And it's an important tool in our toolbox, for sure.
so how many businesses in the downtown zone do you think will be eligible for these tax credits? They already did Arches, they already did Thompson's Flower Shop. They already did Power Play Sports, which used to be Hope Sean. And they already did the post office, so what do you got left? Norms,
Well, I think that maybe Gail can speak to what the application is, what the benefits are, and then I think it's up to those businesses that are in this community to see if they're eligible, first of all, and second of all, how it affects, and if it's beneficial.
again, backing up, the last go around. It looked to me and to other people like the only ones who are gonna benefit from this thing were developers that wanted to build low income housing. Because pretty much everything else had been used up. I had already got a grant the last time you had a downtown designation.
I guess the other question is that we have some holes in our community right now, both in the Big Lots is leaving.
That's not the downtown designation.
Well, I'm just saying is that we have some holes in our community. I think that the former Walgreens store, I think, is being taken over by Salvation Farms. I don't know if they would be eligible. They've got the Nephew building that's potentially gonna be redeveloped. They've got a permit, but nothing's happened there. We don't know what we don't know there. But as we move forward as a community, and businesses ebb and flow in our community, it offers incentivization to be able to provide saying, you may be eligible for some assistance if you relocate to Morristown. You know, this is another opportunity for economic development.
You wanna finish your presentation?
Sure. So if we could turn the page to the next page, downtown and village center tax credits. This outlines downtown and village center tax credit and property owners of income producing properties, which includes rental units, commercial buildings, state owned, as well as business owners can apply for these tax credits. And this could be used for facade improvements, fire safety, code improvements for historic buildings. And it doesn't have to be historic buildings dating far back. Be considered 30 years old or considered historic buildings. So this is a benefit that directly benefits private property owners. And over there were over the number of years in a row, private property owners have had applied to tax credits to make those repairs and upgrades to their buildings previously in the program.
Now, couldn't they sell the tax credits to the bank, which they did? They sold the tax credits to your bank last go around.
I do not know the answer to that question.
Typically, when tax
And they
credits
sold them
sold
for
by
like-
banks,
for
it's around
less than
interest
face
rate
value.
benefit. So when banks buy tax credits, this usually provides a interest rate benefit on a loan to a business. So they might sell them and a bank gets certain credits in their portfolios, but it's passed on some sort of interest rate deduction.
The next page outlines the downtown transportation fund. This is a grant that the municipality would apply for, and it's ideal for smaller build projects And looking back, Morristown participated and applied for grants up to $100,000 in the past. And this was used for various lighting projects, Portland Street sidewalks, Pleasant Street parking lot renovations, East High Main Street, Copley Street lights, the Bridge Street sidewalk extensions. So a number of projects that help create better accessibility in Morrisville and better lighting in our community. So these are some additional benefits to the program. The next page outlines specific, it's sort of a snapshot of the different types of projects, of what you can do with the funding, utility relocation, wayfinding signage, street lighting, ADA access improvements, and currently it's, up to 200,000 with a $20,000 match. From the last time they were part of the program. The next section is a benefit that is awarded to the downtown organization that we would be partnering with. So MAC would be eligible for a $25,000 grant to support the efforts in economic development, capacity promotion of the downtown, and beautification of the downtown. So that's an additional benefit for MAC to support the community. The next page outlines the value of the downtown organization and the role that they play, supporting existing businesses, attracting new businesses, events, advocating for the downtown. So they would do a lot. They're wearing a lot of different hats.
So in our case, that's Max, correct?
Matt, yep. The last two pages outline the requirements that we need with collaboration with Morrisville Water and Light, and we've been talking about those documents. I've included the whole copy of the whole application for your review, but specifically the relevant information in collaboration with Morrisville Water and Light would be information within the capital budget and program related to drinking water, wastewater, lighting, stormwater, and section 8, water and wastewater compliance and resilience commitment. Include a copy of that as well.
What questions you all have?
I'll go back to the building height, with the unlimited units that we put in, we're looking at more 3-4 story buildings that could be put in downtown. But that, if we exempt 250 by downtown designation, is that true? Or is that possible?
S100 dictates vertical height. And Act 181, if we were to be a tier 1A, there's concern that there could be local zoning could be superseded by Act 181. But we, as I understand it, and I'm not purporting to be an expert on this, but we would not really be eligible for 1A. We might be eligible for 1B, and that would require Morrisville Water and Light trustees and the select board to want to move forward with that. So again, vertical height is S100 and potentially Act 181 with tier 1A.
So let me ask the question a different way, because you're getting into the granular stuff because you know it, which is great. I think what Tom's asking very specifically is if we get exempt from Act 250, does that in and of itself, forget the fact these other state laws that you just said, does that actually mean that the downtown opens up to more development?
No, downtown designation, our local zoning bylaws, whether it be 2023 or whatever is amended in the next year, 2 years, etc., will supersede any sort of Act 250 exemptions. So downtown designation our local zoning bylaws, unless there's change in legislation, we're seeing it from.
Could happen.
There will be no ability to, for our zoning bylaws to be superseded.
From this action.
I'd like
There's other
that.
stuff going on, but not from this action.
I'd like to ask a question similar to Tom's. So you could build a building like Hutchins Street on any available lot in the village in the designated downtown.
You can do that today without it.
What's that?
You can do that today without
No,
it,
they have to get Act 250 approval to do it now.
which is like, back when I was involved with that stuff, it's like 99.4% of all applications get approved.
Well,
It's not that
I,
most
for
people
one,
think it is, it just
like
takes
the
time.
Act 250 review, some
That's
people
fine.
say it slows it down, it makes it more expensive.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that way.
Are we talking building height exclusively or just?
No, the whole thing.
I mean, I don't know how versed you are, but we have a change that I think is up for amendment. And have been up for amendment for a while now, and it got superseded by S100. But we addressed the building height thing specifically, because basically by S100 and Act 47, we could have been on the hook per the state to buy a new ladder truck.
Yeah, I remember that.
Okay, so I don't know, I'm late to the conversation, but.
And
So if what Brent is saying is accurate and our bylaws won't be superseded. Let's get to moving the bylaws approved and along, because we have made that address. For this reason, for exactly that reason.
but if a developer came in and wanted to build
Today,
build a bigger building and he got the permits, would have to buy a new ladder truck.
you're goddamn right, today they can do it,
Or.
and we
or
acted.
sprinklers or standpipes.
And we acted specifically so that that wouldn't be the case, because it's $1 million truck. And you all know this, I mean, and it's going on the budget, which was contentious before S100. So
And what's the deal with the bylaws that you're talking about?
We
they're
have,
not,
we have a full.
they're not even in front of hearings yet, because we've gotten mucked up by other things.
We had a poll
And
hearing. We had a
this
poll
has been
hearing
going on
when
a
Todd,
year.
when Todd resigned, we had a
It
full
was,
public
it was,
hearing.
it was last legislative session that S100 and Act 47 came down. And us as planning council spent a lot of time reacting to it so that all of the work we put in front of S100 didn't get put to shit, and pardon the language. And we are now compliant with all of it, and we can't even get in front of.
I realize you can't move it forward because you don't have a zoning administrator, or you're not a.
It goes way prior to that, Bob. We're kicking this can down the road. And kicking the can down the road and kicking the can down the road. And we just. These changes have been ready for review.
Okay, so what do we need to get these changes in?
Action from the select board and the trustees to put them on an agenda so that there are public hearings. The
Okay,
last
but I
public
thought you
hearing,
can't put it on the agenda because you don't have a zoning administrator.
I don't know the details of that, or
Okay,
I don't know if
if
that's,
you
we have a zoning administrator right now, he's sitting in.
Okay, if you came to the board, to this board anyway, with those proposals, I'm sure they would probably pass.
We had a.
I understand, they've been in
We
front
passed them last
of you,
time.
they've been in front of you for a long time.
Just to be
And they've
clear.
been pending hearings, but
If I recall, we passed them and then somebody sent it out for
there's
regional
no
review
passing of
about
anything
the
yet,
three,
there's no passing
the
of anything.
3 acre zoning.
There's a new set that was coming through the process. And had been recommended for hearing. The hearings were set. We had it scheduled for. Last meeting, it was supposed to be February 5th, was supposed to be our public hearing. And when Todd resigned, we had to hold the public hearing, because, at least that's what we were told, because at that moment in time, we didn't have a planning director. To move it forward, and so we did.
Just to back that up, Scott, so and there's a public process, they have to be warned.
They
So
were.
we're 15 days, no, I understand that, but now that was unable to happen because of Todd's departure. Now they have to be warned again, it's a very.
Okay, well, why don't we get them on again and move it
Great.
Just need,
I'm with you.
I need to
Okay,
make sure that we
I mean,
can,
we can't do it, but
I need to make sure with the town that we can.
The town
move
can
forward
do
now, I don't know.
We need a
have-
planning commission.
Hmm?
You need a planning commission, and you need a planning director, so you just table.
I thought you became the zoning administrator.
There's,
No, but he's
there's
talking
a
about
significant
conservation.
difference between a zoning administrator and a planning director, or a planning commission. So, you know, a zoning
So what do you tell
administrator.
me, we can't do anything now?
No, I try to
They're
explain.
looking for a new zoning director or planning director.
Well,
Well, we can't do anything until you guys.
We can't do anything until you do something.
well, that's something involves all of you.
The interim planning commission
Yeah.
discussion
They were earlier.
would fix this, right?
Could they not have-
Allow you to move.
could they
forward.
not just
It would
be a
appoint
step?
Could be a step, yeah.
We could, that planning director could be, a full-time equivalent union, member. So-
And under our old structure would have full say to do whatever he wanted to do, regardless. Well, yes, but anecdotally, no. Yes, I mean, based on what, I mean, he could take our year of work and say, nah, I don't agree with it. And say, nope, we're doing this instead. And that's the difference between a commission and a council.
And I would just note, I get the frustration in all directions about where we all collectively find ourselves. I understand it. And I think what I always try to urge any public body to do is, you know, don't react to the crisis. Take the time you need to understand what the question is before you, so you try to get it right. And that's been what I've been trying to urge you to do. This tonight is kind of your first introduction. I know that the resignation happened quite a while ago now, but this is your kind of first introduction to all of this material. And so my goal with you all is to, you know, take the time to get it right so that you're actually comfortable with the path you're charting here for the community. And if you're ready for that tonight, hallelujah, do what you want to do. But if you need a little more time, and I understand all the frustration, that's gonna push down a couple of weeks, and it's not that I don't care about that. I just think, you know, you're elected officials and you should take the time you need to be comfortable with your decision.
I would like to echo Scott's comments. However, I wouldn't get comfortable. I would put priority on this. We have been steaming ahead with planning in this town as an aberration in this state for a long time. And I don't mean steaming ahead like an unstoppable freight train. I mean working diligently towards it. I would not get comfortable and wait and figure out the right thing, because a lot of things can happen in the background, like a 50-foot building and $1 million fire truck
Oh, I get that.
can happen. So if we don't close those loopholes, and I appreciate his frankly wisdom to say like, hey, let's not rush, let's not make a rush to judgment here. However, there is some expedience warranted to say like, how do we solve this? And I mean, all of us, select board, public, I've heard nothing but cooperative discussion amongst everyone saying, we would like a public process to decide if we're gonna be a council, commission, planning director, zoning administrator, etc. Amen, I'm on board, I think our entire council is, but let's get it going.
Well, you know, and we could have just hired a new planning director a couple of weeks ago, or a month ago, put a search out and done it. And we wouldn't be here debating council or committee or in two different, people in the same position that Todd occupied. But you didn't do that. So here we are.
I mean, Bob, on paper, you can do that. There's not people lined up to do that. And also, if
You're never
whoever you
find out if
hire,
you don't
you
have
give
it.
that authority, you live with their decision until you decide you don't like it and you fire them. So, I mean, it makes sense what you're saying, but.
So far on, just to be clear, so far on the zoning amendments, we've had a 2-week delay. You're supposed to have a public hearing 2 weeks ago. So, you know, you have not been inexpedient to date, and you were told to pull that public hearing, not something, you know, being real willy-nilly. So I just want to be clear about that, you know, so, and I also don't want you to think I'm saying, you know, we should deliberate forever. One of the adages I live by is the perfect is the enemy of the good, right? So It's not that I think, you know, you shouldn't have a debate society about this and just go round and round. But I think more mistakes are made in public governance when people act too quick in a rash way when they don't have that information, than when they take an extra 2 weeks to cogitate and talk to people in the community and find their way to what they think the right answer is. So that's all I'm asking for.
Well, didn't somebody say there was a deadline for this thing, like a May 2nd for the town plan, or downtown designation? I heard a deadline.
April 2nd, I think you told me.
Yeah, downtown designation has nothing to do with.
Yeah, how did we move back to the commission versus council? We already moved on to that. Aren't we talking about downtown designation?
Right down you are, yeah.
Can we make a decision on that? I kind of like the idea.
Yeah, I don't see the
I-
negatives. in-
I move to approve our support or whatever we're trying to do tonight. For this
Well, we haven't
downtown.
figured out what we're trying to do yet.
The only thing we don't have for you tonight is we don't have clarity on what we need to do for allocation of water and sewer.
Right,
And we're trying to get clarity on that. I spent a lot of time with both Brent and LCPC today, trying to get clear about what is actually required of us. When you look at the pamphlet that the state gives you, it's incredibly detailed. And we actually can't do it because ordinances don't allow us to do it. We can't provide an advanced allocation, formal allocation, because our ordinances prohibit us from doing that. We can do an ability to serve letter. That's what we give anybody that develops in Morristown now, and we can do that. We need to figure out how are we supposed to calculate it. The state's formula says we're supposed to have a build out analysis done and determine how much water and sewer that needs. But we don't have that, and we're not gonna have it anytime soon, probably not even by the deadline. LCPC says when Hardwick, who's the most recent one, they didn't do any of that. They just sent in a letter, which I attached to your packet, that said we can serve it in about this amount, and apparently the state signed off on it. So LCPC is saying, you could just write a letter like that. And I said, well, but it wouldn't say allocation, it would say ability to serve. And they said, well, it'd probably be fine, and I'll probably sign off on it. So we're still trying to get the answer to what we have to get from A&R. And because, you know, you all will have to authorize that. So I think this is next meeting, Travis, I get where you're at on it. I just, I need
so
to
this
try
is just
to,
information right now.
I need to try to get clarity on what you actually need to act on. You know, that piece of it. The rest of it should be filed for designation, and we can do that whenever you're ready, but the most important piece they need from us is that allocation piece. And general support. I know you want general support.
And some resolutions.
Yeah, I know, but. So if that makes sense, I'm not trying to have you defer.
No, I think that's great.
Okay, so.
And back to the planning council versus planning commission, if you had a perfect candidate for a, forget the term, whatever it's called, director.
Yeah.
Versus a planning commission, it sounds to me like you, for reasons I'm not listed right now, but in general, that's your preference, go that direction as a planning commission. Just
I have,
history and the way things have worked over the past few years, or?
I have no preference as town manager, and I've not heard anything from the select board, and so what I have heard from the select board is they want feedback from village trustees, planning council, DRB, and the community. And then, so the first step in that is David White tomorrow night, hearing what he has to say and answering questions that the community might have. But I have no preference,
I got a question about the makeup of the planning council or planning committee. A couple of years ago, we passed a resolution, and this, I think the select board did too, that all new members of the planning board and the DRB had to be residents of Morristown.
I'm the only grandfather.
You're the only one grandfather. The proposal here doesn't say anything about requiring anything except the majority of the council to be residents.
I think it's in statute. I think if you read.
Well, it's not in the thing that we got. It
I
says
don't know.
the
We'll have to
to be made
reconcile
up
that
between
with-
5 and 7 people, majority have to be residents of Morristown. Well, you remember when we did the no new outsiders,
So that,
And I
that
wanna
is
see-
in conflict with the joint agreement between.
and I wanna see that. And I would like to see how many people on the commission now, are the council 5?
But
I'd like to see it stay at 5. You get 7 or 9, it becomes manageable.
I agree with you. I think statute says it can be 5 to 9.
Yeah,
I don't think we can determine that as a town.
But we
or a
can.
village. You run the risk of having 2 planning boards at that point if you decide to go against Morristown.
no, I'm talking about everything the way it is now. The new board members gotta be residents of Morristown.
The I don't know, I'm using words that I don't know how to qualify to use. The resolution in front of the select board at least is that they change us from a council to a commission.
Right,
Essentially as is. Existing terms, existing.
and everybody from
meetings.
your council goes over to the new commission.
Correct.
And it also says that the majority have to be members of Morristown, but just the majority. So if you got 5, you can have 2 people that don't live in Morristown. And like the last go around, we grandfathered you.
Agreed, but I think whatever that last go around you're referring to, I think still stands, like, I think.
Well,
That's
now
a
that we-
Morristown
Bob,
bylaw.
just, something we read, I can't.
It's right up on the
It,
screen.
it says that the majority, so it just
But
needs
this
to
is,
be
these are
resolved.
these notes, right?
It just
This is
needs to
from-
be resolved.
These notes from when
I
we
don't,
met.
what is, can you?
What are we looking at?
It's your motions.
So this,
So
this was, motions that was written by,
this might need to be changed, because it actually violates the joint operating agreement between the select board and the trustees. Because the joint operating agreement that was passed 3 years ago.
It
2 or 3
overrides
years
what we
ago,
passed.
Says they all have to be Morristown or village residents.
Yeah.
You were
Exactly.
right, I know.
so I appreciate you bringing that up, I wasn't here 3 years ago, so I wasn't aware of it.
No way you could.
I'll have that
So,
taken care of and.
and then back to your question, I won't try to answer your question about, which is better, council or commission, but if you believe in the concept of the wisdom of the crowds,
Wisdom of what?
the wisdom of the crowd, if you hear enough people,
Yeah,
you'd probably be about right.
yeah.
I think it's true, if there's more than one in Vermont that has a planning council, there aren't many more. So we have a planning
Zero.
council,
Right.
everybody else is a planning commission.
Zero.
Morristown is the only.
That's what I thought. So, just, that's not to try to lead you anywhere, but just if you wanna know what the other 200 some odd towns in Vermont have done, they've done not what we did.
So with this, with the new commission, the zoning administrator would just be in an advisory capacity, he's not approving anything, the commission's approving them.
Be the planning director in Waterbury, it was just a planner. There wasn't a planning director, it was just a planner. My 16 years of experience there is we had a commission and the commission, planning commission, worked with the planner to develop zoning bylaw changes, develop a plan. It wasn't one authority said this is the way it's gonna be. So the question to the town and the village is that, do you want some pure autonomy in one individual to say after a year's worth of work from the planning council, this is where we wanna go, and they say, no, this is how we're gonna do it. Or do you have a commission that has statutory authority to develop amendments, to develop a town plan and do that? And the planner is, I won't say necessarily just an advisor, but is a council and helps promote the planning commission as they move forward. Yes. And, technically, the planner works more with the planning commission and the zoning administrator works more with the DRB.
The other thing I would just note for you, just because you may hear different things called planning director around the state. There's a lot of planners in the state of Vermont called a planning director. So there's a distinction between like a person running a planning department where there's multiple staff, who is the director of the department, and the statutory planning director that we have here. But some of them are just called planners, you said in Waterbury, but you'll hear about planning directors all over the state. They're not the statutory version, they just run the planning department. So if there's a 2 or 3 person department, one of them's in charge. they call it the planning director, right? So I don't want you to get confused by that and think it somehow
Yeah.
crosses what we just said.
I would guess the cost of having 2 employees when we only had 1 and things worked pretty well is gonna come up to the select board.
Yeah.
And
I think out of the, presentation from Dave tomorrow, the opportunity in front of us is, do we need a full-time planner? Do we need a full-time zoning administrator? Do we need 2 part-time employees? I think that those are all the things that we need to have a conversation about. I don't think we can sit here
well,
tonight.
we're not gonna solve that tonight.
So I think that knowledge is power. And as we walk down the path, we can take a look at the community's growth and needs. We can make educated, calculated, critical thinking on this and come to some logical conclusions. Ultimately, we want to do what's best for the community. And whatever metric that is, we need to see what the cost is and how we do it.
You wanna table the downtown designation?
Do I have a motion to table the downtown?
I'm not trying to lead you to that.
We have to
We're
take,
not
we can't
ready.
make a decision, right?
That's what,
Yeah, motion to
I'm,
table.
I'm just wanting, it was on the
Any
action,
further
agenda, so
discussion?
you have to do something.
No. All those in favor of tabling the downtown designation? Aye.
Thank you. I didn't mean to cut it short either if you weren't done. It looked like you were all done.
Call a question, right?
Yeah, so. Good.
Unless there's anything else.
Thank you all for coming in.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
you.
We'll learn a lot more in the next 2 weeks and get
Yeah.
these back on, and all this stuff back on. the
Need
agenda.
stuff.
Thank you.
Good night.
No, we have, our management report to do. That's it. I don't know. They don't.
Might as well get up and walk out, Chris.
I guess. Management report?
All right, thanks.
Okay, other business, management.
Kevin, you wanna go and I'll go see if Penny and where these 2 went? I don't think so. Go ahead, Kevin.
There's too many unknown variables right now.
So, no, I totally agree. I mean, we couldn't do anything with,
And they obviously didn't research what we already had because they wrote that thing up about people out of town being on board. Or the committee, or the commission.
yeah, that's.
Forgive me for busting in here, but I hope you realize what
Could you repeat that?
our citizens are really frustrated and confused. This is Tom Cludia. I'm sorry. I hope you realize why we are so frustrated, confused, and really disappointed on what's going on now. I hope you guys all get together and get this somehow solved. We're in deep trouble right now in this town, and your leadership, is important.
Hopefully you'll be at the meeting tomorrow night.
Yeah, I'm afraid if I come in there, you'll all get my flu.
It's online anyway.
I'll be on Zoom. Hope it's soon. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Tom.
We've lost our phones, so our call center can't work, so Rusty and Penny are trying to work with our call center to be able to pick up the calls there if we have an outage tonight.
Oh, why don't we do the,
But we can do, did you already do yours?
No.
You can do yours, I'll hit theirs.
Sure.
yeah, fine.
I kind of know what they do, not entirely, but kind of.
No, it's been kind of quiet the last couple of weeks. Everybody came down with something, it was closed. And, right now, all the hydros are working, which is good. We've done the snow samples. Had to do them again after this last big storm, up in Green River to see what we can get down to now. Probably 5 or 7 feet, we can draw it down.
What's going on with the horizontal unit?
Nothing yet,
What's that?
nothing.
Are you gonna put some heaters in that thing?
Yeah, so we're gonna plan to, I think.
Where does the town dump snow?
Just past the wastewater treatment plant on Bridge Street is one area. I don't know if they've got multiple ones or not.
What's that?
I was wondering, where they dump the snow, because I remember in Manchester, New Hampshire, they dumped it in the river.
Yeah, it's,
Lots of places
was
use
it
it.
cleared out by that plywood, oil?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Fire pit over
Yeah,
there.
right before the dam, they dump it.
They used to dump it right along B Street, but I guess
Yeah.
you can't do that anymore because it goes in the river.
In the river,
It's
yeah,
gonna go in the river no matter where you dump it.
eventually.
That's right.
It used to be off Old Premier Road too, I think that is spot.
Yeah, they used to dump it at
Do you
the
know
corner
where, do you know where
of,
Stowe downstairs, do they go down Moscow Road?
I see them on Mayo Farm Road there, they dump
Oh, yeah,
some in
that's
the
Stowe.
cornfield, I don't know, may have other places too, I don't know.
but they used to dump it at the corner of Washington Highway and Howard Street. That lot,
Oh, yeah.
they used to have a pile as big as a building.
Yeah.
And I guess somebody bought the building and said, no, it's.
So Rob, on the horizontal, we're not gonna really have any update on that until after spring runoff, because what we have to do is we have to shut everything off at the surge tank
Okay.
and get inside that penstock, and we're not gonna give up the production. The verticals run fine.
Oh,
We'd have to shut everything down, so
I
I just
just
wanted you
think-
to know where we're at with that. We're not-
I just think that, it might be, the fact that you can't run it, might be a good time to totally clean it, put some heaters in it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I don't have to use a mega to see the grounds, I can stick my hand in the brush right and it comes up cut. I mean, the thing is just loaded with carbon, but you can get that thing ready to put on the line. If you clean it, put some heaters in, and then when, after the penstock is fixed, you're ready to go. You're not saying, okay, now we're gonna do this and this, the people that clean it can't show up for 2 months.
We also have
That's my point.
we have to get the welding done on the draft tubes too, because.
Yeah, but you can put the heaters in and clean it,
Yeah, we can
change all the
do,
brushes,
we can do that.
get it ready to go.
Correct. And I did talk to one of our consultants, not the people that have been doing the work, who told me that the bumping of the horizontal couldn't possibly be what I suggested, but I talked to a different consultant about, the fact that with the hole in the draft tube, the way that the configuration is, it's just hydraulics and waves, that because there's a hole there, that you could be creating an oscillation that feeds right back up into the turbine, and that could be creating the bump of the horizontal shaft.
Well, when I looked at that thing, when I went down there the last time, I looked at the brushes, they're all different lengths.
Yeah.
Right? Some of them might be grounded up, and that could do exactly what happened.
Yeah.
If those things short out and such, one shorts, the other one shorts, and the thing starts going like this.
No, exactly, so, yeah, so we can get to work on some of those things in the meantime, because we're gonna have some time with it, but. So probably it's gonna be at least June before we're.
Okay.
Gonna wanna shut that surge tank off, and,
Oh, I don't wanna shut it off ever, but that's.
but we're gonna have to make that repair, so, but we wanna do it when there's not as much water, frankly.
As we go through all these repairs, and I had a former board member put a bug in my ear with this question, not me making it up.
It's okay if you are.
Cost, no, I didn't know, but I don't want to take credit for it, but, cost benefit analysis of, you know, how much money is being put into these things versus, you know, is there, are you aware of where that point is, where you go, well, we can't spend this much because we're only getting this much out of the whole.
Yep, I did that, early on when I got here, cause when we were really trying to figure out what could happen with Green River, I looked at all of them though. And I used the analysis of everything that was currently needed to be done on the dams. And everything that would need to be done with the new FERC permits and A&R permits, to make them run. And I turned all of those into, how many cents per kilowatt hour, and, Morristown and Cadiz both end up, you know, more expensive than they are today, but we're still way less expensive than our average cost of power supply. And that was before the value of the RECs went up massively last year. So it's an even better story now. Green River, if you can't generate water without, if you can't generate power without water, and the state regulates water out of existence for you, well, the math isn't hard to do. If it's still, divide anything by zero, you got zero, right? So I have done that analysis. You know, I should update it because we've obviously found had some additional problems with them. Haven't done that in the last couple of years, but I could do that, Carl.
Yeah.
I'm happy to.
Now, how many generators are in the Morrisville plant? One or two? Two. And they both, they're singled up, one at a time?
We can run them both if we have enough water.
If you have enough water, okay.
Yeah, one's at 1,200, the other's 600.
And those are both horizontal or vertical, they're both the same,
Vertical, yeah.
both vertical, so it's Cage Falls that has the horizontal.
That's right. And we may have a third turbine at each of them, one of the things we're looking at.
The
right now.
micro turbines that we
Putting
mentioned.
micro turbines in to use all the bypass flows. We've worked with a consultant, it looks like will be, each one could be around 150 kW,
No, didn't they?
which is non-trivial. You know,
It was a long time ago, but they bought some new turbines. Back in the eighties, and they couldn't get a permit to put them in.
right. I don't
And they
think it
wound
was,
up in a warehouse down in New Hampshire for years.
I think
We're
that's-
paying storage on them. I think they finally sold them.
they did.
Did they even make it to the States? I thought they were overseas somewhere.
Oh, I thought they landed on the dock in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. They put them in a warehouse.
Yep.
And they were paying thousands of dollars a month to store them. Are they the same kind of micro turbines? That's
I don't
that's
know.
my
I
question.
don't know, but
I'm not sure.
we want to size them appropriately and maximize the use of the bypass flows.
Mhm.
Cause we don't have any aesthetic requirements, we're actually, that's the one thing in the permits we got away with. Most dams now have to have aesthetic water go over the top to make it look pretty, we don't have any of that,
Well,
so
they had it.
we
They
can,
tried that, didn't they?
they did, we didn't end up with any of that, so. We can capture all the bypass flows and run it through a micro turbine and drop it right at the bottom of the dam. So that the channel always has water in it, that's what our bypass flows are for. So that'll be good. What else you got, Kevin?
That Green River, we got that governor issue resolved, and we're just gonna keep drawing it down as the snowpack data.
Now, what kind of governance did they got?
It's hydraulic.
Is it similar to the ones at Cady Falls?
No, it's not even similar to the governors that went in Green River. They, I don't know.
I mean, because they're huge and they're filled with oil.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, when I was down there that time, they were getting ready to start up, the oil was like stone cold. And I don't know how you could ever get it to work like that.
But it's watching John fire those things up is, I don't wanna say comical, but it's.
I mean, I can remember the old governors on steamships, you had to have the oil at 160 degrees.
I don't know how they do it, but
But if it was at 40 degrees, I mean, you couldn't pull the flywheels out because the thing was so slugged up.
Scott found a consultants that walked through both Morrisville and Cady Falls plant to help us out with hopefully some grant money from Department of Energy. And did she say later when we met here, I forget what she said, but oh no, when you met with them and when we met together on Zoom, you were up in Swanton, that our units, as old as they are, they have the benefit of the Black Start capability that a lot of the newer ones don't, because they're so reliant on electricity to.
Oh, yeah, they're
to
electronic.
run the plant. So if you don't have, if the grid's down, then you can't start the plant. So there's some benefits to being old school the way they are and how they work like that.
I mean, I don't know if it's still in existence, but in case of a big power failure in New England like we had in the 60s, I mean, I'm old enough to remember that. The lights went out everywhere. The Morrisville plants can start up with no electricity. So they're like on a list down in Boston somewhere that, if the big blackout comes, you start these things up and then you just build down the line.
Yeah, and the vision I'm pushing is that with the ineptitude of ISO New England and all of the craziness going on. And it was already threatening, for the last 3 years, they've been threatening rolling blackouts. So since we have the ability to, these dams used to run, before there was a transmission grid, they used to run the power grid right here. But now today they feed into the transmission system, not the distribution system. So one of the things I wanna do is get them set up so that they can feed each and get the right switches in place. So when the day comes that ISO New England says it's time for blackouts, we're gonna go back to 1895 and just power our own system and say, as far as ISO New England is like, they'll think our whole system got turned off.
Right, because
And I could care less, right? And
so what you're saying is that because our plants can start without electricity, then you use that electricity to start the
If
plants.
you can start the whole grid up like they did in the 60s,
Exactly.
these are vital
Yeah.
because
That's
they don't need any electricity.
Right.
Yeah,
So
and
you
the
wouldn't want
reason, the reason the consultant was so excited to see him, because I had shared this idea with blackouts, and she was like, oh, I didn't think what you were telling me was possible, but you actually still have the old turbines, so of course you can do what you're talking about.
There's nothing against the law or no regulatory requirement that
Yes.
for doing
I
that.
don't think so, but if there is, frankly, Carl, like, you know, if the choice is to pay a small fine or have everybody not be without power for a week, which one would you tell me to do?
Yeah.
I think I know the end, and please don't tell me because. But I think you'd rather have the power stay on, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's our job by definition.
So. Were there any outages this last storm?
We had one outage right down in the village, very small one, that mostly impacted one or two houses. A wire just blew off. It was the wind, not the snow. But that was it. We just.
Oh, it was windy.
One very small.
That's
outage.
great,
Yeah.
So a lot.
We're fortunate, yeah. Anything else for you?
Just the work at the wastewater treatment plant Carl asked about, and we started changing some of these 2-inch mechanical meters out, so we'll hopefully start reaping the benefits of those.
Okay. For Rusty, I think, you know, we're planning this year to do the next phase of the transmission line upgrade. We came from Wolcott up towards, Morrisville last year, and so this year we're gonna get up to at least past sub 5 or 6.
From 6 headed to 5?
Yes, from 6 headed to 5, so up towards probably Solar. So Rusty's been ordering, he's been getting transformers in, you know, cause there's such long lead times, he's been ordering that, so he's really mostly, he and his team have just been making sure everything is taken care of, inspecting poles on the system, you know, getting everything kind of ready for when it's time to do capital work, you know, customer work, that'll all start flying fast and furious here pretty soon, so a lot of prep for, you know, the big summer coming. So, 'cause every summer is just, they're crazy. Penny's been mostly all female all the time again, cause that's her life. She has gotten, God, I don't even know, 5 dozen applications for the customer service supervisor position.
Oh, good.
Last I talked to her, she thought a couple of them were worth talking to. You know, that's the world we live in today. You get, you know, 30, if you get 30, you might have one that's worth talking to, so. But she's got a couple that she thinks, are worth talking to, so I hope before we see you again, that some processes that will start, so. That's moving, that's the point. I think we've talked about all my stuff and grant thing. I don't know, something else I wanted to tell you. Oh, so down here on where the walls are, we've told you about the 4-part strategy there. You know, build a flood wall around wall 3, replace wall 2 with wall 4, move the generator, floodplain, and then protect the aquifer. So the last piece we've been waiting for all of the negotiations has been the cost of the aquifer protection. We got that Friday. So it was actually exactly the number, I guess.
You're talking about the riprap of the armoring of the.
Armoring of the bank, you gotta, to get a permit, we gotta like create a bypass channel in the field, but armor it so it can't go away.
Yeah.
And then plant the field in trees that can help slow down debris and.
So we have to get permits from A&R for.
We'll have to get permits, but we've been talking to them, and I think they'll give them to us, so the 500,000 is the cost for that.
That's not bad at all.
So it's exactly the number I had guessed, and, so now we can bundle that all up, I think all of the projects included, I forget exactly, it's in the $3.7 million-ish range.
So do everything we need to do up there.
And do everything, but that should now allow us to get both the negotiation with FEMA about mitigation funding, get that finalized so we can hear what they're gonna offer us. As I told you, we got through the first phase of state mitigation funding, and they asked us to you know, put back in once we had the final cost for the aquifer protection, so we can advance that and see if there's any money we can get there. And then we're starting the process to talk to the Northern Border Commission, who has grants for this sort of thing. So we'll see how much of that between those 3 possible pathways we can get. There's still gonna be a local nut we're gonna have to figure out how to pay for, but.
So the local, are the FEMA adjusters still around, or do they get laid off?
As of last Thursday, they were still around. They're
Okay.
definitely incredibly nervous.
Well, they ought to get moving.
Yeah, so, but right now they're still around. So I just wanted to tell you, we got the final piece of the puzzle.
Okay,
So we can now start getting to the final negotiations and figure out what the offers are, so we can firm that. whole-
so when they armor the bend, how deep do they go?
I just got the design, haven't looked at the plans yet,
Okay,
so. Yeah, but VHB is really good at this. I mean, they do most of this stuff around the state in terms of design. You know, so we've got a good consultant on this.
I mean, I watched a seawall going in.
Yeah.
And they drove pilings in, these steel pilings in, they're probably 60 feet deep.
Yep.
They pounded it in, you know, then they trimmed them all out.
Yep.
And they put all the, I'll call it riprap, it's not riprap, they put all the stones outboard of the steel.
Yeah. I gotta look at what they're proposing here. Usually on a river like the Memorial doesn't take that. You just have to you basically create a rock filter. So you have to put the heaviest stuff in the smallest rocks in the right order. And that keeps it so that the water can't get behind it and undercut it from behind.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see riprap bypasses, because they didn't actually create basically a filter of it. Usually they just think if you put bigger rocks in, it'll stay there. And you let too much fast moving water run behind the big rocks and it undermines it from behind and then it's awful.
So that's the same thing with the seawall.
That's what you don't do.
If you just pile rocks up and pounds and the thing falls back.
That's right. So if you design it right, it's pretty dang resilient. I mean, the piece that we did 20 years ago on the other, out before you and I, but Morrisville Water Light actually did the piece of riprap that is over there near that property now. It looks just about like the day it was put in. It's more on the point of the bank over near well 3. There's riprap up there. Apparently we did that. And,
So the state will come around about them changing the direction of the flow of the river?
So we met with them, with our consultant, and the good news is the guy working for us with VHB is well respected by A&R for this type of work. And so the meeting was actually incredibly friendly and they said, yep, we don't like this, we agree we don't like this, we don't like this sort of proposal. But when it's a public water supply at risk, we work with people. And we make it happen. That was basically what we got told.
Maybe they'll come around with that.
At least on this, we'll see. So anyway, I want to make sure you knew that.
So Brad, what's the temperature down there?
I really hate to tell you, it's getting cooler. It was 75 today. It's been in the mid-80s the last few days.
Probably 100 degrees difference up here.
Yeah, I know. And you know what? I haven't hurt my back shoveling sunshine yet. So that's good.
I used to like you, Brad.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Hey, gentlemen, I will miss the next meeting.
Okay.
For my wife's birthday, I am taking her to England and Scotland.
That's exactly what you should do.
Careful, mate.
You can do from there, can't you?
Yeah.
Well, maybe I can.
Doesn't mean you should.
So I'm sorry, but this is her big birthday and this is what she wanted to do. Her grandson is doing a semester in London.
Great.
So my daughter's flying in from Alaska and her daughter's flying over from Massachusetts and we're all going to get there and then she and I are taking off for a week in Scotland.
Wonderful.
Now you don't play golf, right?
Well, I do, but I'm not going to try St. Andrews, buddy. I don't play that well. But
do you want to take Kathy's question?
Yeah.
Good. Kathy, what do you got?
Well, probably most of them are for you, Scott, and I want to keep it short because I can see you're all tired. Tomorrow night's meeting is between the village and the select board on downtown designation. Is that correct?
No, it's a meeting to talk about the differences between planning commission and planning council.
Okay.
As I understand it, and it was warned as a meeting of the select board, the planning council and the DRB. And then we got invited and that's why we're not sending 3 people because we didn't know about it. We didn't warn a meeting. So we can't send the majority of our board because we couldn't meet the open meeting laws, so Bob and Travis are gonna go as representatives, but since there's only two of them, that doesn't represent a quorum.
Huh, that's interesting, okay. So it's almost not worth meeting about then, correct?
I think what you heard, I think from the trustees tonight, not to put words in their mouth, but they wanna learn more.
Yeah,
and
so
better
for
understand,
me
so-
specifically, it was to get the information I needed to make a decision. I wasn't comfortable making a decision on a commission versus a council for Morristown without that meeting. So, and knowing that meeting was coming, I felt it was premature to make that decision tonight before that meeting.
Okay, and the vote for the village budget is a floor vote?
Correct.
Okay, what time is that?
That meeting starts, I believe, at 6:30 on it's a Monday, so I think it's April 14th, if I recall correctly.
It's around tax time, I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, you'll probably, put that out again.
Yeah, it'll be on Front Porch Forum and Facebook and on our website, it'll be everywhere.
And do you know how many property owners are in the village that pay the village tax? If you don't know it, you can just forget it.
What about the property tax?
How many properties are in the village proper? I don't know
I
quite.
think the sewer customers are like 847.
It's something like that.
So it's gotta be around there because I think most of the people in the village are on sewer.
Right, they are, but then again, we also serve outside the village out that way. So when you look at our total customer count, it's a little bit less than that.
I mean, out towards Morrisville Plaza there.
Yes.
Well,
So,
I'm on it, for example.
Yeah.
I'm on the sewer and I'm outside the village, for
And
example.
you on the water too?
Yeah.
So,
it's in the high hundreds though.
Okay, because we probably couldn't go up there
I
now.
paid for it.
Well, Dana Wild lived up there, right?
so,
Yeah.
because why I was asking is, this, bond issue is only
Yeah.
voted on by village taxpayers.
Correct.
So that wouldn't be the ones that are talking tonight that live outside of the village, but get village services.
Correct. And the reason for that is when the village, any municipality, but when the village of Morrisville takes any obligation like a bond, the only people whose taxes back that bond are the members of the municipality, not all the people we serve. So the residents and taxpayers of Morrisville proper are the people who have the tax obligation if somehow we defaulted. And that's true Morristown or any other municipality. If you're doing something outside your boundary, your municipal boundary, then only those inside the boundary have the obligation.
Well, if
Everyone
you're a
pays the
registered
bills.
registered voter in the village.
Yeah.
And you don't own any property, and you don't have a water or sewer bill, you can still vote,
Correct,
as long as you're a
Okay.
registered voter in the village.
correct.
Okay.
And the bond is not, the taxpayers aren't paying for it.
The taxpayers,
It's all grant.
the taxpayers won't have to pay for it. We got 50% of it's coming in grant. The other 50% of the money we need, which will be set aside to pay for the bond, is from fees we've already collected from past development. When new development happens, we charge a fee and have for a long time to have them essentially buy into the infrastructure that's already been built. And so we've collected that sits in a reserve fund, and so there won't be any new cost on the sewer rate related to this bond issue.
And I understand all of that, but
Yeah.
I kind of got from you that you might be concerned that other taxpayers don't understand that.
Absolutely, that's what we're worried about.
Yeah, only because we gotta get the word out, that's why.
So my suggestion, I don't know if you want to take it or not, but my suggestion is you use Facebook very eloquently. The
Thank
other
you.
board doesn't want to use it. I would put it on Front Porch Forum as something to the effect, attention, Morrisville Village taxpayers only, make it clear it's just for the village, not for the whole town. And then
Perfect.
make it clear that it's 100% covered, no cost to the taxpayer.
All right, good, we will do that.
You almost, I mean, it's really sad about how many people in this town care about things, because like when you did the meeting about the 16.33% increase, there was
Yeah.
me and another person that joined in of the whole Morristown.
Oh, you're right.
And it's really sad. And I've been to your meetings or your village votes for the budget, and you're lucky if you get 10 people there. This year, if they look at your budget and see that you basically level funded it, which thank you very much, you might not even get that many. So I just want to make sure that I'm there so I can vote yes.
Good.
For you, but really use your front porch forum and make sure that you put, bold headlines, village taxpayers only.
We will do that.
So, and then my last question brings up from the meeting from the select board last night about town-owned property. Like the village, or like the piece of property across from the library, what's the name of that road? That Habitat for, yeah, pardon?
Park Street?
Well, no, the road that goes,
Richmond Street?
yes,
I
Richmond
think
Street.
it's Richmond Street.
Yeah, you're correct. That the Habitat for Humanity wants that. Judy Bickford was very angry last night that the select board didn't just turn it over to her. So do you have anything to do with town-owned property? Do you have any decision on what we do with green space in the village?
In terms of if it's town-owned, we don't have anything to say about that. We have a fair amount dispersed all over the place of village-owned property. So a different set of properties than the town would be talking about, and the trustees get to make decisions about that. Or in certain cases with real estate transactions, we have to get voter approval to do things. In other cases, we don't. And then in terms of what happens with green spaces, the only way we tend to get involved with that if it's not village owned is oftentimes if people want it to remain green space or something, we'll get an application for special project funding or Amy Wade funding to beautify it in one way or another over the arc of time. That's happened over the arc of times. A lot of the street trees and stuff down right in the village were funded from those village funds, and that's a decision that the trustees make. But outside of that, no, I guess if a developer wanted to approach us about a piece of village property we own, that would be a matter that we take up in a similar way. Maybe, I don't know how the select board takes it up, but that'd be a dialogue we could have, but we don't have any big properties I'm aware of in the village. Ours.
The big one is on Bridge Street, and I think that's just outside the village.
It's out of the village, and we have a couple landlocked properties here and there. We were chartered in the 1880s. And so over that arc of 145 years, we've also had a lot of different roles. It hasn't always just been utilities. And so you end up with these little pieces of property all over the place. And we've looked at that in the past of how to move some of those back out of our ownership, and we'll look at it again in the future, for sure.
So I thank you for answering that, because I didn't know that there was village and town. So today I went to the town and I asked, and they're gonna send it to me because I'm not demanding it at this moment, but they're gonna send me all town-owned property. Is there any way that you could get up a list of village-owned property and maybe leave it at the front desk and I could pick it up there in the next week or so, or whenever you say you have it ready?
Yeah, I think we have a list of that. I don't think I've ever looked at the file, but I've seen that we have a file of village-owned property before on our network, so I think we can.
I think if you get a copy of the grand list.
Yeah.
Morrisville Village has to pay taxes to the town on the property we own outside of the village.
Correct.
So you can find all the property outside of the village that the Morrisville Water and the Village of Morrisville owns. And then the village itself It's this building. It's the power plant in Morrisville. Down here. It's not Katie's Falls, that's not in the village. And there's a couple of other little pieces. There's the substation behind, it's on the rail trail.
Pratt Reed stuff.
It's behind the old Pratt and Reed factory.
Okay, yeah,
And they own some land up on Center Hill and going up towards High Park, but that's outside of the village.
Correct.
okay,
Yeah, we can get a list put together. That's not a problem. Easy to do.
okay. Okay, well, thank you very much and have a good evening.
All right, you too.
It was a good meeting, thank you.
Thanks.
Well, what do you wanna do?
I don't need the executive session. I do is informational. We can do that next week.
Yeah, okay. We have a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Brad.
Thanks, Brad. Have a
Gentlemen.
good time.
Hey, you- Good night, guys. Take care, guys. Thank you.
7:25.
Thank you. All right, take care.
Good night, everyone.